Hello and welcome. This is the first video in a series about tactical considerations for Infinity the game. This is not a hard and fast tactics guide, there are other videos for that. Rather, just some considerations to think about when playing Infinity. These are nothing more than my ideas and thoughts I consider when playing Infinity. You do not have to use them, however, hopefully they will assist you when playing the game. This video will cover some considerations I think about when selecting ranged weapons for my troopers. So I will explain why I've chosen the weapon ranges for Infinity the game. They are the short, medium, and long range bands. I will talk about some considerations for selecting ranged weapons, which weapons are suitable for the terrain type on a game table, and which weapons are relevant for specialist troops or troopers with enhanced skills. So here we have an example of a weapon profile in Infinity. It is just an example to explain the ballistic skill modifiers for certain ranges. The ranges are divided into 8-inch range bands. Green indicates a +3 to a trooper's ballistic skill attack. This helps to cancel the -3 in enemy trooper gains from partial cover, helping to increase the chance of scoring a hit against the reactive player. This is what I call the maximum effective range of a weapon. Blue indicates no effect from the weapon in that range band. It does not negate the -3 from partial cover and enemy trooper gains. Orange -3 and red -6 offer a negative effect to the active trooper's ballistic skill attack. This increases the negative effects from partial cover the enemy trooper receives. This is what I call the weapon's negative effect range. First, I'll consider short range weapons, and they are to be equal to or less than 8 inches, and it includes direct template weapons. My reason for this is that standard movement range for a trooper is 8 inches in a single order. Direct template weapons are fixed ranges that cannot be modified, and these are the teardrop shaped templates. So this is just some common short range weapons found during Infinity games. The two teardrop templates on the right are used for direct template weapons such as flamers, shotguns and blast mode, etc. And as you can see here, the maximum effective range is in the 8 inches or less. This is the weapon profile for common pistols used during the game. The weapon maximum effective range is the same for all pistols, only the ammunition type is different. I will not cover ammunition types here, perhaps in a later video. The pistols all have a maximum effective range in the 8-inch range band. This is a list of shotgun weapons. Hit mode represents firing solid rounds at the enemy. This means the active player must make a ballistic skill roll to determine if they hit the enemy trooper. Blast mode uses direct templates, which are the teardrop templates on the right. The benefit of using a direct template is that you do not have to perform a dice roll to decide if you hit an enemy trooper. An enemy trooper that is under the template silhouette is automatically hit. The enemy trooper must make an armor save roll as usual. This makes shotguns great when in the active turn, or terrible if you're on the receiving end during your reactive turn. So here is an image of how the range looks for short-ranged weapons on the table. They are very useful for engaging up close in dense terrain and for deployment zone control. This is my reason for classifying medium-ranged weapons. A typical 300-point game is played on a table that measures 4 feet by 4 feet. Each deployment zone is 12 inches in depth. Between the deployment zones in an area 24 inches long on the standard 300-point game table. This is known as the midfield. Weapons that can shoot into or across the midfield are considered medium-range weapons. So here's a picture explaining what I mean about the table size and the midfield for a 300-point game. The marksman rifle, rocket launchers and Spitfire are common medium-range weapons. They have no effect at short range and have maximum effect greater than 8 inches and up to and equal to 24 inches. So here is an image of a medium-range weapon effect on the table. If you were to activate a trooper on the edge of your deployment zone, indicated by the blue miniature with a Spitfire for example, you can effectively engage enemy troopers in the midfield and behind cover, cancelling out the -3 modifier from partial cover to your ballistic skill attack. Rifles are unique. On top are standard rifles. They have no effect up to 8 inches and are effective up to 16 inches. Not quite the full 24 inches, however they do engage targets greater than 8 inches. Combi rifles and their different ammunition equivalents are unique. They can engage in the short range band and up to 16 inches. So that's basically the first half of the mid-range, the 8 to 16 inches. Some troopers that have the standard rifle will often be paired with a shotgun for short-range engagements, such as Ariadna and Hakislam troopers. More tech-savvy factions, such as Panosiena and Yujing, have combi rifles as standard weapons for their troopers. This means having one ranged weapon on a trooper instead of 2, and being effective in both range bands of short and medium range. Long-range weapons are weapons that have maximum effectiveness greater than 24 inches. Such weapons can cover the midfield from deep within their deployment zone or can engage into the enemy's deployment zone. An example of a trooper with a long-ranged weapon in the front of the deployment zone and engaging into the enemy's deployment zone, or in depth covering the midfield. So common long-range weapons are the heavy machine gun and rocket missile launchers. They are effective when engaging enemy troopers farther than 16 inches away, however not good at hitting the enemy less than that. The most common long-range weapon is the ubiquitous sniper rifle. Here the sniper rifle is best engaging enemy troopers further than 16 inches, and the range band pretty much covers the entire 4 foot by 4 foot table. Okay, so some weapon considerations regarding the terrain setup on a tabletop. Firstly, I'll talk about dense terrain. Dense terrain consists of a lot of scattered terrain, offering partial and total cover for moving troopers. Plenty of buildings to block line of fire at ground level and vertical level. Better weapon selection would be to have medium and short ranged weapons, maybe 1 or 2 long ranged weapons for that opportunistic long line of fire lane. Some examples of dense terrain are this one. Here you can see there's a lot of buildings, especially tall buildings that help break up the vertical space, and there's a lot of scattered terrain, and obviously the walls block a lot of line of fire. However, there are some areas on the map, such as along the roads, that are your long lines of fire, and most likely benefit from longer range weapons. However, most of the battlefield can be covered or protected effectively by short range weapons. Here, this terrain represents a spaceship boarding actions or an internal office space. As you can see, it's very short range bands, most likely no greater than 24 inches. And it's quite limited in its movement on the terrain, and so your best weapons for this terrain would be short to medium range weapons. Here is a very well made dense terrain table. There's only a few long line of fire lanes, basically from the bottom left of this left corner here, across to the center of the enemy's deployment zone, but otherwise there's very little long lines of fire. Maybe the one setup would be for down here, maybe a sniper to engage all the way down here. Otherwise, most ground troops and troops on buildings will have very limited lines of fire. Okay, open terrain tables consist of a few scattered terrain pieces, providing cover for moving troops. A few buildings and lots of open fire terrain. Lots of open and long lines of fire. Ranged weapons that are medium to long range work best with short range for deployment zone defense. Some open terrain tables are, for example, this table. Now this is a very good looking thematic table, the black and white with a tinge of yellow. Now it looks good, however it's very open. There's a lot of lines of fire where you can be easily seen. From moving down here, you can be easily seen along different lines of fire into your deployment zone. And if you had HMGs or snipers up here, they'd easily cover other terrain tops and down on the deployment zone. So it's quite open. Another example, this looks a bit more clustered, however, the only difference is the terrain is set up on a 45-degree angle, but it still has, this setup design is often used to prevent lines of fire from one deployment zone to another. However, all they've done is just rotated the line of fire 45 degrees. So you may not see from here directly into that table at the ground level, but you can see long lines of fire here into the opponent's deployment zone. And if you deploy a HMG or sniper up here, or even up here, you'd have good lines of fire all across the table. So this is very open terrain. Here is an example of what looks like good terrain, however the coloured lines represent long lines of fire. A good example would be if you had an AD trooper and you happen to put it down here, you'd have a nice long line of fire to enemies' positions hiding behind cover here. Okay, my considerations for weapon selection on a trooper profile for Infinity. Infinity is not always about killing your opponent's army, rather completing objectives. This means using specialist troopers correctly to move forwards and complete objectives. Having the correct weapon on the trooper can give the ability to defend itself. Some trooper profiles have special skills such as infiltration to move into a more favourable position in the midfield and control the area, supporting the specialist trooper in completing an objective. Having the correct weapon can achieve this for that trooper with unique skills. So Infinity, some troopers are specialist troopers if they have the following skills: Doctor, Paramedic, Engineer, Hacker, Forward Observer, Specialist Operative skill, Chain of Command skill. So for example, we have the Sombra. It has full deployment plus 8 inches, allowing the trooper to start outside the friendly deployment zone and in the midfield. Climbing plus means the trooper does not have to spend an entire order to climb a piece of terrain. It can use climb as a short movement skill, allowing for another short movement skill or short skill during a regular order. This makes the Sombra quite maneuverable in the midfield. All weapons in these profiles are suitable for the special skills this trooper has, and the weapons can engage in the midfield effectively. I've used the Vargar to demonstrate a ranged weapon selection that may be ineffective for its role and skills. The Forward Observer trait allows this trooper to be a specialist trooper and complete objectives. The first weapon choice has a combi rifle and heavy flamethrower. Two weapons both cover the short range very well, with the combi rifle extending into the medium range. The second option has a rocket launcher and a light shotgun. The shotgun covers the short range effectively, and the rocket covers the farthest medium range band and into the long range band. However, there is no overlap for the greater than 8 and less than 16 inch range band. This trooper profile may be less preferred for the specialist role, and it may be better used as an ARO piece in the reactive turn. Then when in the active turn, move forward to complete objectives, but it must first survive in the reactive turn, which there is no guarantee in Infinity. That concludes this video. I've discussed short, medium and long range weapons and my reasoning for the classification system. I've mentioned some considerations that I think about when building a list and selecting trooper profiles for playing Infinity. Hope you found something useful in this video. Thank you for watching.